Hi, and welcome to PodRocket, a web development podcast brought to you by LogRocket. LogRocket provides AI-first session replay and analytics, which surface the UX and technical issues impacting user experiences. Start understanding where your users are struggling by trying it out for free at LogRocket.com. Hey, I'm Jack Herrington, and today we have Will Madden, Senior Engineering Manager for the ORM, here to give us the first look at Prisma ORM V7. Hey, Will, how you doing?
I'm good, thanks. It's good to be here.
Yeah, let's talk about Prisma.
Let's do that.
For the few folks who've never heard of Prisma somehow, if that's an actual thing, tell us what Prisma is.
Prisma is one of the most popular JavaScript ORMs. And an ORM is a very old acronym that stands for Object Relational Mapper. And that's a tool that you use in your application to talk to your database. And instead of having to write SQL, you get to talk in terms of your application entities. Like if you've got users, you can say, give me this user by ID and give me the posts that are associated with that user, and so on. You get to speak in your application abstractions instead of your database abstractions. And that's what Prisma does for you.
Nice. And it would then also give me portability, right? So the whole, one of the big wins there is I can go take it and put it on, Postgres or Oracle if I happen to be, I don't know, using that, or MySQL or something like that.
Exactly. And more recently, Prisma released their own hosted database product, Prisma Postgres. You can now combine Prisma's ORM with Prisma's hosted database, and they both get superpowers.
All right, well, we'll talk about that. But for the Prisma folks, the Prisma fans out there, what's in V7 that's going to blow their minds?
Blow their minds?
Blow their minds.
The biggest change in Prisma between 6 and 7 is we are moving away from Rust.
What? Everybody's moving to Rust. What the heck?
It sounds crazy, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, actually.
We're using more JavaScript.
Oh.
More TypeScript, specifically.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
No Wasm?
We are also using Wasm.
Oh, okay. So is it Rust to Wasm, then? Is that the idea?
Yes, exactly. It's an intermediate step. The long-term goal is we want everything in TypeScript, but we have years and years of complicated edge cases that the Prisma team has hit that are now encoded in the logic of Prisma. And to try and rewrite from scratch means throwing all those test cases away, all that complicated, valuable, battle-tested behavior. So we want to keep that, at least initially. So we're cross-compiling our Rust logic to Wasm, and we're packaging it all up in a TypeScript package for you, so you can run it anywhere.
Are there other features that are also like big V7 wins that aren't, that isn't this changeover, or what's the?
Yeah. So broadly, one of our biggest goals with Prisma 7 has been to start moving away from some of the long-standing magic of Prisma. Prisma's been renowned for having a really good DX for a long time. But that DX has changed a lot over the years. And it's always been, all the decisions that the team has made over the years have been with the goal of making it really easy for people to get started. And Prisma will basically just like do what you want without you having to tell it. But the outcome of that is some unspoken assumptions have crept in different places. And
some magic.
It's a magic. You layer enough of those on top of each other and you start to lose track of why things are happening the way they are. So we're sort of taking a step back with Prisma and rethinking a lot of the big components and how they work and removing bits of that magic.
Okay. So like what? What's some magic that's being removed?
Okay. So a really famous pain point has been Prisma does a little bit of code generation for you, right?
Yeah. Okay.
You work with Prisma, and one of its like most characteristic features is you get to write this beautiful declarative Prisma schema. You say, I've got this model and it's got these properties and they have these values. These types.
This is my user. This is get the first name, last name, all that stuff. Yeah. Got it.
Exactly. Age that's a number, name that's a string, all that kind of stuff. And it's got a relationship to posts, and this is what a post looks like. And then Prisma will take that beautiful declarative schema and it'll figure out what the structure of your schema should be, what tables your database should have, and so on.
Yeah, so it's Postgres, it compiles it into PSQL or whatever.
Right. Yeah. So we take your Prisma schema and we need to compile some TypeScript types for you. Your application needs to know what types it should have, and that's not encoded in TypeScript to begin with, so something needs to do the conversion. And Prisma will do it for you. And like many other complicated things your ORM does for you, we don't really want you to see it because it's not a detail that you need to care about until you do.
Until you do.
So
until it doesn't work. And then you're like, uh-oh. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you can see where this is going.
Yeah.
Historically, Prisma would write the result of this operation into your node modules directory. That was a very counterintuitive thing to do.
Yeah. No, you shouldn't be tweaking the node modules directory.
Yeah. You're really ruining all my reveals here, Jack.
Oh, sorry about that. My bad.
No, it's okay. You get the idea, right? It's really handy, and the Prisma client that you access in your application would just magically have all these extra types in it. And it's because your language server, your IDE, because it reads your node modules to get type declarations, now it will find these extra type declarations that we put in there for you.
Right.
But there are lots of cases where this starts to cause complications.
Yeah.
Like if you're using yarn PNP, you don't have a node modules directory. So now what do we do? You install your node modules again, wipe your directory, your types are gone, and you didn't expect that. In VS Code, your types don't automatically reload if something changes in node modules. So yeah, lots of edge cases. So there's a lot of magic like this that we want to remove, or where it's like assumptions about behavior, we want to give control into users' hands.
Sure.
Simple examples of that are like, originally Prisma would decide where your schema file lives, your Prisma schema file, and like where should your migrations live, or where's your output directory. And we've introduced a Prisma config file with Prisma 7 that's becoming required, and that gives you the opportunity to give us all of this config. Nice. If you don't, we will make assumptions for you, and it'll be very similar to the original experience.
Pretty much what we had before, but okay. You can decide. Yeah.
But that was not magic. Like, if you're wondering how we make these decisions, you can just give us the information.
Exactly. And you're not going to put the types in some crazy node modules place. You're going to put them probably in like a file that maybe you bring into git ignore, maybe not. That kind of
We're also going a step further, and we're going to output TypeScript instead of some heavily minified JavaScript and separate types. So we're making a few improvements in this area too.
Yeah, no, it sounds good, man. I'm in. I'm sold.
Good.
Okay. This is really good. I'm impressed with your moves here, because I think that kind of follows what we're seeing in the world. Like, we saw some other tools move back off of Rust. It was one of the reasons that are there like extensions that I can add to Prisma that I couldn't really add because they're TypeScript based or JavaScript based, and like it wouldn't work with Rust. Or walk me through the decision on that. It's actually kind of cool.
They're out yet, but they will be.
I like it. Okay.
Yeah. So the Prisma codebase has been a split TypeScript and Rust codebase for a long time. You asked, are there extensions I can use? Well, no, because it's really hard to create an extension for a system that's half Rust and half TypeScript. And the reason that it is in this state is because of Prisma's history. Prisma is now a TypeScript ORM, but Prisma originally was an ORM for any language. It had one common Rust core, and you could output a Go client or a TypeScript client or a Python client, and they would all share the same Rust package at the middle. We don't need that anymore. We've decided to just double down on TypeScript. I think I announced this in the last podcast I did with you guys.
Oh, okay. All right.
Which was a while ago.
Yeah.
So that part's not news, but if you can imagine, like, how would you write an extension for something where the core of it is in Rust and you don't know where the other half is?
Yeah, the answer is you don't.
Could be any language. Right. So that has been a really big motivator. I've been pushing really hard for us to decouple Prisma. Because it has this monolithic core, it has to know about every combination of what database you want to talk to, what dialect it's speaking in, what the application's configuration parameters are. And this creates like a combinatorial explosion of different edge cases Prisma has to handle. All that logic needs to live in the core. And because half of it's in Rust and half of it's in TypeScript, it's also impossible for external contributors to come into the code base and say, oh, well, I want to change this behavior. This is where I would look.
Or I want to add this optimization, or I want to support this new database that I wrote over the weekend, with an LLM. Okay, I get it. Yeah, that makes sense. So, and I can now see why you're actually wanting to also move off the Wasm stuff eventually too. Is that like it's the same problem, right? If you got two languages going on here, it's almost impossible to do any kind of extensions.
We've kicked the can a little bit down the road, but at least now you don't need a separate process running in the background to actually run Prisma.
No, that's great. I see where you're going with it. And I think that's great because eventually, like, yeah, you're going to break it out into modules. You're going to have your Prisma Postgres. And if you're not on Postgres, you don't get any Postgres code, right? And it's all,
right,
contained. Yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. And I'm digging it. That's great. Actually, for our listeners, do you also support like, Mongo and other like more document-oriented databases?
We support Mongo.
Okay.
That's the only document-oriented database we
support. Okay.
So far.
All right, fair enough.
Like, not because we don't want to. It's just, it's a heavy lift adding more exotic databases to the family.
Yeah, because you'd have to go and add them, as you say, like the support for that, you have to have it in Rust, and now, like, obviously the Wasm stuff. So yeah, but once you get to this point where you've got this modularized approach, then you can go and like actually support all kinds of stuff, or potentially other companies like, I don't know, Google with Firebase or what have you. Convex could go and create like their own adapter layer.
And for sure, supporting document-oriented databases is tricky because none of the primitive abstractions that you have in relational databases apply to document-oriented databases.
Right.
So that means your internal abstractions get very, very far removed from what actually gets read or written to the database.
Yeah, and that's where these kind of abstraction layers start to break down, right? Is when you have like you got an entirely different O1 system here where it's like everything is looked up by ID, and you don't have the same kind of ACID idea that you have with SQL, where you want to make sure that like there's always the source of truth. You get a lot of replication and stuff, which is a lot faster, but there's the downside of extra space. And as you say, like it doesn't necessarily match up like one-to-one.
Highly directional relationships, right? Like you can keep branching downwards in your nested documents, but
can't go back.
Like lateral relationships is really hard.
Yeah. Look at me trying to be like some sort of database guy. And this is like, I usually always punt this stuff to like the database random person that's like...
Well, hey, the whole point of Prisma is that people who aren't database people can talk about it and understand it.
So for the folks that are like screaming at the radio or the headphones or whatever and saying like, wait a second, I'm always going to run into the case where I need to like just write my own SQL for this thing because the ORM didn't do a good job figuring that out. Is there a backdoor here where I can basically say, hey, listen, for that query, we're going to do it this way kind of thing?
Yes, there is.
Oh, cool. Okay,
you can always drop down to raw SQL through Prisma.
Okay, nice.
And I think that's a really important concept. Any abstraction layer you have, you're always going to eventually run up against the limits of it. There'll be something you can't express that you want to, or some like performance optimization that's really important to you because it's such a hot code path. You've got to have an escape hatch that you can use to fall down to a lower level of abstraction.
It is interesting, though, kind of taking a step back and looking outside of Prisma for a second. Like you are getting this like community kind of either going with the Rust thing or going with the TypeScript thing. Now you've got the TypeScript core; they're going Go. Interestingly, like to their rewrite of TypeScript, and you've got the Vite plus Void Zero folks. They're going Rust across the board with the Ox stuff. I don't know why they named it Ox, but Ox something, Ox lint, Ox format, all that. Have you noticed, like, have you seen these trends? Do you find yourself like looking at them like, okay, is that the right move for Prisma or what? Yeah.
Well, I think it depends a lot on the nature of the operation that your tool performs. Right?
Yeah.
Like if you're writing a parser like ESBuild or something, then you have to read a whole lot of files in a row. You've got to create an abstract syntax tree from everything you've read. Then you've got to go over this tree many times as quickly as possible. Whereas for Prisma, if you're your application, you're talking to your ORM, and eventually you want it to make a call to your database and then do something with the result when it gets it back, the call to your database is going to be like a few hundred milliseconds. Right?
Yeah.
The execution of Prisma will be measured in microseconds. It doesn't have to do a lot, right? So performance optimizing the execution in Prisma and like using a performance-oriented language that's hard to write just to improve that like 50 microseconds to 40 microseconds, it's a bit of a waste of effort.
Yeah, just a little bit.
And that's kind of the realization that I see people having in the JavaScript industry. Like you sacrifice a lot of developer ergonomics to work in a performance-oriented language. If your tool isn't benefiting from the kind of performance that language gives you, then it's a bit of a waste of effort.
Yeah, that's a common trade-off that we see. Are folks that like they want really good DX and they're willing to almost trade off like production speed, which to me is never something that I've really understood as a good idea. It's like I want, I'm okay taking a bit of a hit as a developer in terms of my speed in order to get like really good performance for the customer, because they're a millionfold to me. Like, there's yeah.
If you apply that logic to an ORM, where you as the application developer will see benefit is if we can craft your query in a very clever way that makes the query more efficient, but it's not like processing the rows that come back from the database. That's where you want to get the performance improvement. It's getting fewer rows, but getting the right ones.
Getting the right rows, exactly. Yeah, no, makes sense. Yeah. Nice. Do you mind my asking, like, how big is the team around all this?
We're about 5 of us working on the ORM exclusively.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so really a nice, small, tight team. That's great. I love those.
Yeah, it's a big project for such a small number of people to work on, which is another reason why we're really optimizing for how can we make the code base serve us as best as possible.
Yeah, that modularization thing is huge. So you get those API layers right between like the core and the modules, and then you can just kind of like mentally just say like, okay, that's on that side of the wall and it works. I'm going to unit test the heck out of it. And then like, I'm not going to worry about it again. That's a huge deal, as opposed to everything being one big old massive jumble. And then it's like, well, if I touch this one thing over here, this thing breaks over there. That kind of classic old school problem.
I think that feeds, I think a lot of this, the structure that the project has at the moment comes from the philosophy that Prisma has had historically, which we're also trying to change.
Oh,
I said we want to get rid of magic. A question that comes up repeatedly is, what is good DX?
Yes.
Like, what does good DX mean for you?
Oh, for me?
Yeah.
Wow, that's a hugely broad question. I would say that it's designed for no surprises. That would be my number one thing.
Exactly what I was going to say. Yeah. Predictability and simplicity are now 2 of our core philosophical guiding principles.
Oh, cool. Right? I passed the interview. Cool. I'll take my job.
You did great. Yeah. When you run a Prisma command, you should know basically what it's going to do. You don't want to get unreadable error messages, or it works sometimes, it doesn't work others, or you install your node modules again and
I was literally just going to say, or it hacked my node modules, which would be surprising to me,
right?
In a not good surprising way.
Yeah, so it should be deterministic and predictable. It should be simple. Like the other big thing we're trying to do now that we've been kind of dancing around is we're trying to build it around the concept of composability. Prisma has many bits of it that work in concert to give you the effect that you want.
Yeah.
And we're trying to raise in your config file, you'll start seeing options are appearing that relate to when Prisma is doing one thing or when it's doing another thing. When you instantiate it in your application, now we're going to ask you for more configuration parameters than you gave us before, because we're putting control in your hands.
Yeah.
We're going to make it really easy for you to get sensible defaults. But for the users that who have reached the boundaries of where the ORM can infer what they need, it should be dead simple for you to rip one piece out and replace it with some other implementation that you want.
Yeah, what is that? The solid principle, like the Liskov substitution principle or something like that?
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow. It's 6 a.m. in Portland, and I'm thinking about the Liskov substitution principle. Okay. This makes a whole lot of sense. In addition to doing the LogRocket podcast, I also maintain the Create TS Router app or Create Start app for TanStack. And we just recently actually integrated Prisma into it. So you can just select Prisma as a thing, because now Prisma sponsors TanStack. So we added that integration. So I'm definitely going to upgrade us to the V7 the moment that comes out, so that everybody gets on the most recent stuff. So, because
that's amazing.
The hacking of node modules, man, the dude does not abide hacking node modules. I didn't know that you were doing that. Like,
I apologize.
It's okay. I mean, it wasn't on
Don't
you.
worry,
I'm sure that
it's going
was
away.
made like 3 years ago or whatever. But I'm sure that was like one of your like you walk in on day one, like go up to the whiteboard, no hacking node module. Underlined, 3 underlines.
You would be surprised how close to the truth that is.
We are never, ever going to ever do that again.
We are not. Never.
Good. And that's okay, right? And I every decision you're making sounds the right one to me. And then that, as you say, that's what you want from a tool, is you want it to kind of think like you, so that you don't have to think about that thing anymore, right?
Yeah.
So in your long-term thinking, once you had like V8 and it's, now you don't have Rust anymore, and now you've got this cool modularized system, or probably it's maybe V9 or V10, I don't know, how 6 months or whatever. What's the future of Prisma hold in your mind? Like, more support for wider databases, or are there like specific areas that you think you could get into more deeply with that kind of modularization?
I guess the biggest paradigm shift that our industry is experiencing is, unsurprisingly, the rise of agentic coding. Prisma does a very good job of making developers' lives easy by giving you abstractions that make it easy for you as a human to understand what is happening with your database.
Right.
The long-term vision is going to have to be, how can we better fit into agentic workflows? Rather than make life just easy for humans, how do we make life easy for your agent? And I think everyone in the industry is still kind of figuring out what that means, right? Like, agents need to be able to easily understand the content of your code base, to understand, more than that, your intent when you wrote the code, to have tight feedback loops, and to execute quickly. So what does all of that mean in the context of an ORM? How does the value that an ORM provides, how does that shift downstack from just abstraction to more like feedback, guardrails, whatever else agents need? That's the long-term vision.
Yeah.
We're taking steps towards that already, but we're going to take many more steps, hopefully in a hurry.
Well, I think you mentioned doing the create startup stuff. So for us, my thought around this is that what we want to do is we want to go in. If you say, for example, like, I want React Query, right? Which is, of course, like, you really probably want that, because everybody puts React Query in their apps nowadays. That we would then go and also create like a corresponding, markdown file for the LLMs, saying this is how we do queries in the app, and then give them like actual like structured recipes, so that it could basically just go and look at that file and be like, okay, so here's some prior art on how to do that query, and there you go. And so that's the kind of thing I would maybe expect to see from this ORM layer, is that like it would go and actually build out a file that my LLM could look at and be like, oh, okay, if I want to get a list of all the users, here are my database, here's my tables, and that's kept up to date automatically. And then, this is what the relationships are, and here's how you make a query, here's how you do, here's all the CRUD stuff. Is that in your mind as well?
It's one of the things in my mind. Like, it's a broad field.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And as you say, I don't think anybody 100% right now knows like what the best case is in there.
That's true. But fortunately, there's a lot of overlap between making life easier for humans and making life easier for agents. If you can make your interface as intuitive and obvious as possible, and like, when you make mistakes, if your interface tells you, oh, dummy, this is what you've done wrong, when your agent is receiving that feedback, it will automatically correct it, right?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Are there more things about Prisma that we should talk about before we...
Yeah, I guess, like, just to sum up, the big things changing with Prisma 7 is it's getting more predictable. There will be less magic. Your application will run in more places. We don't have to spin up this Rust native binary process in the background. So serverless environments become a piece of cake.
Bundle size is smaller. I heard dropping like
bundle size is smaller. TypeScript type evaluation is faster. We have a new generator that spits out TypeScript instead of JavaScript and a bunch of legacy stuff. We're giving Prisma Studio a facelift.
I like that.
Yeah. So when you use it, if you use it in our Prisma Postgres web app, we've already given it this facelift, and we're porting that so it's available to everyone on the CLI, no matter what database you're using. Just a handful of other like quality of life improvements all over the board.
How about the hosted? We should talk about that too. Actually, the hosted Postgres, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Prisma Postgres.
Prisma Postgres. So is that also getting some V7 stuff, or is that kind of like that's its own thing running at its own speed?
It is getting a long list of V7 improvements that are coming out at the same time, but they're not a part of the implementation of the ORM.
Right.
So we've added recently direct TCP access to the database, connection pooling, whole host of other features. There'll be a big release announcement coming soon.
All right, Will, it's been really fun talking with you about Prisma ORM V7. Of course, thank you for being on the LogRocket podcast.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah.
And I can't wait till the next time.
We get to see how much less Rust and how much more TypeScript you do in V8, which I certainly hope is quite substantial.
Oh, yeah. I can tell you right now, V8 is going to be exciting.